Hello everyone and welcome to WhatCulture Gaming. I'm Josh, joined today by Scott Tilford.
Hello!
Scott Tilford, you are the light of my life and you've been playing through the Mass Effect Legendary Edition recently, which I am insanely jealous about because that is one of my most favourite gaming franchises of all time. So, I want to know, I'm going to hand it over to you and pretty much shut up for the rest of this video, but I want to know, have they done a good job in remastering the original trilogy with all the DLC, or is it a situation where I'm going to pick it up on Friday and be like, look how they massacred my boy, how's they done?
No, for me, I think they've actually split a really good, they split it right down the middle. Like, you think of all these different ways that, legendary, IPs have been approached for the remake process. You've got the Saints Row 3s, the Mafia Definitive Editions, where it's really gorgeous visual overhauls, where it's mostly mechanically the same, but I guess, it's very, it's the visual punch that hits you first. And then you've got the likes of Tony Hawk's, where it's like, look, the sequel's clearly made meaningful changes. So if you go back to the original one, if you go back and you haven't played that original game for a while, it's going to feel like things are missing because your muscle memory is more in line with where the sequels were. And Mass Effect is very much in line with that. And so, yeah, I actually love the way that they've split the difference where it still feels like Mass Effect, especially Mass Effect 1, I should clarify, is the one that's had the most work done to it. Because if you played Mass Effect over the years, and me and Josh are both massive Mass Effect fans, that series had a big old uptick in just gaming quality, action quality from Mass Effect 2 onwards. In terms of, the original game's cover system was really weird. The actual feel to combat was really weird compared to 2 and 3. And that's the thing that they've gone in and completely overhauled. They said they were overhauling it. For the most part, I think they hit their marks. It still has the exact same cover system. You're not pushing a button to go into cover. It's not Gears of War style. It's not Mass Effect 2 or 3 style when you're in combat. It is still pushing the analog stick up while you're facing a wall, and then you'll hug up against it and you can crouch and stuff like that. But they do give you the new squad commands where they came in 2 and 3, where you can just hit left or right on the D-pad, which is assigned to one of your 2 squad mates, and get them to go up ahead, and you can get different flanks on the go and move through levels the way that you would in Mass Effect 2 and 3, which I really love. I think that kind of makes even that immediately makes the combat feel more fleshed out. They've changed things like the grenade button used to be the back button in the original Mass Effect. That's now on square. Melee's now on circle. Heal's still on triangle, but it just, all that stuff makes it a lot snappier. The AI itself isn't great on your squad mates. I do have dudes getting stuck on the walls, Rex just in the corner, but I'm moving my way through and he's just can't get out. But for the most part, it feels like a nice step up without... I think they could have done a bit more. I think I would have preferred the stop and pop cover system from Gears from the newer Mass Effect, but it's enough. And the DNA still feels like the original Mass Effect. It's still going to feel, 2 and 3 are still going to feel like a step up. They haven't completely taken through 2 and 3's combat system and completely put that into 1. But do you have any specific questions you'd like to ask before I run down things that stood out to me?
Well, I have a few things about the combat in particular, because I don't know, I haven't really been following the trailers that closely. I don't know how much they've changed. Do we still have the base shooting mechanics from 1 where we have the overheat system as opposed to the ammo that was introduced in 2 or 3? And how have they kind of approached the class system? Because in 1 it was quite strict in terms of which weapons you could use with each class, depending on if you were a sentinel or a vanguard or a soldier or whatever. Have they made any tweaks to that, or does that fundamentally work as it did back
so
in 2007?
That's mostly the same as it was. Well, they have relaxed the weapon restrictions. You can flick between all 4 different weapon types, although I'm playing as a sentinel, and in my head when I played as a sentinel in 2007 or whatever, I was stuck with a certain couple of weapons, but now I'm flicking between all 4, so I have to assume that's been relaxed, and I'm pretty sure they said that before launch as well. Cool. In terms of the ammo though, they haven't put the ammo system in from 2 and 3. Weapons do overheat. You can, obviously equip different augments to the weapons like you always could to mitigate that stuff. It is worth pointing out, there are a few different things in regards to the way that, the menu system is the same, but they've added things like a quick shortcut button to just reduce weapons to scrap, so it's easier to manage your inventory. You're sort of encouraged to go between a bunch of different weapons faster. I found that I was just applying more weapon augments. I was switching between stuff more often. I was switching between, the sniper rifle, the up-close shotgun, the machine gun in a given fight, as well as the biotics and stuff, the sort of magical powers that you get. Like I said, the core of it you can see exactly what they've done, and it's a meaningful change. Like, having gone through Mass Effect 1 just earlier this year, it is a lot snappier, it is a lot faster, but it is that missing, cover button that they could have done with to sort of encourage you to nip in and out of cover and sort of interact with the geometry a little bit more. But I have to assume that just because the game wasn't made for that system in the first place, they couldn't do too much to it. But yeah, it feels like they've, at least, like I said, I picked Sentinel, and I swear you couldn't go between all 4 weapons beforehand. You definitely now can. But yeah, some stuff to shout out, because I've put in about 4 hours. I managed to get the code yesterday, and just as soon as I finished work, I was like, I'm just gonna Mass Effect. I'm just gonna sit on it. And so the immediate thing that just pleased me was the new character models and new models for everything. Like right at the beginning on the loading screen, you have a new model for the mass relay, so even the loading screen looks nice and sharp, looks different. And you see the new character models for Shepard. They're bringing back in the one from Mass Effect 3 into Mass Effect 1. The character model creator, they made a big deal of saying that they've redesigned the character creator so that it would be the same across all 3 games. For my money, anyone who's not Mark Meer, who's been scanned in, like the actual Shepard face that's been on the box art and everything, everyone other than him still looks freaky as hell. Like, I still don't think they've got that right. It's just, I love a good custom Shepard. That was, played through all the Mass Effect games a whole bunch and stuff, but original, if you're trying to go do a custom Shepard and you're signing up for 100 hours of game time, there is a bit of a jar between setting your dude up and then that first scene where they arrive on the Normandy and you see them from the front and go, oh god, that doesn't look good.
That for the first time playing it back in 2007 and making my custom Shepard and having it lowered in and seeing him in the flesh and thinking, I've made a huge mistake here. I need to go back and play the default. And that's how I played it for the rest of the game. So it's interesting that it still doesn't hold up to the, core Shepard models that they've got in. That is a little bit of a shame in my opinion, but...
Well, I mean, you can still, there are still tons of sliders and tweaks and stuff, and part of the charm is making your sort of fish out of water Shepard in this big old galaxy of different races and everything, different interactions you can have with all these different factions and stuff. But for me, I went, oh god, what have I done? And then restarted as the regular official Shepard again. But, that is also to say that the new character models or the revamped character models are meaningfully different. Should point out at this point that I'm playing on PS5, but there are no dedicated PS5 or Xbox Series versions of this game. There are only Xbox One, PlayStation 4 that they've said in their official blurb are, have meaningful backwards compatibility, which in this case on PS5 means that it's playing in 4K 60, which is really gorgeous to see. The HDR's on point. It does look really, really good. But if you were expecting a dedicated next-gen version, it's not really there, although you are kind of splitting hairs depending on what you want from that. But in terms of the character models, you do have revamped texture models, different, every NPC has way more detail than they ever did before. And even the likes of someone like Dr. Chakwas looks completely different. They've sort of de-aged her a little bit. Just little things like that where they've sort of gone in and tweaked things that sort of stood out to me. Also, finally, the Mako. Where did you come down on the Mako? Where did you always come down on the Mako?
I perhaps was in the minority, but I actually really liked the Mako in Mass Effect 1 because it had no gravity and you were just flinging that thing all over planets and it was a lot of fun, but I know a lot of people do not like it. How have they changed it?
Well, so that's the thing. I love the way that they haven't changed it that much. They went in and obviously, like I said, they talked about it beforehand, saying, it's very divisive amongst the community. I remember, obviously me, you, and Ash have always been a big fan of how it flies around everywhere whenever we've covered this remake beforehand. Yeah. And they have made it more weighty. It doesn't jump off the ground as fast as it did before, and they've given it a more powerful sort of boost. And they've tightened up the targeting. That's the biggest change. Because in the original Mass Effect, you would be holding the minigun button or the rockets, and you would just completely miss. There was no real idea of what you were hitting. You were just sort of watching a health bar go down at the top of the screen and hoping for the best. All that stuff is way tighter than it was before. And the Mako itself has a bit more weight to it, but you still do have the vertical jets. You still have the boost options. You can still catapult it off a cliff if you're determined enough, and you'll still rotate. And everyone inside the Mako would die, as they always would. It still lands ridiculously. But I think the fact you can just sort of tap circle, hop out the Mako, do some stuff on the ground, and the DLC, everything's included if you want to just go do the Batarian missions on a certain planet, things like that. All that stuff just goes. It's just a way snappier package. Obviously focusing on Mass Effect 1 because that's the only one I've dipped into so far, but that is the one of the trilogy that's received the most work. And to sort of bring it full circle back to the squad stuff, like I said, you do have the squad commands, but you can see your NPC's health, you can see their biometers, like, if they're ready to do an attack or not. And in the menu, you can set a different leveling system so that you level through Mass Effect 1 faster, which I have to assume is something that is in line with 2 and 3. It's called the Legendary XP system, or you can just put it on Classic. But it notes that if you're choosing Legendary, you'll be earning XP at double the rate. So I have to assume there's something that will carry across all 3 games in that regard. But it's good to see.
That's a fascinating decision, because I haven't played Mass Effect 1 in particular in a long, long time, but I can't remember any real criticisms about that leveling system unless I just missed them and there were some. So that's an interesting little wrinkle to it. I do have one question. I know you've only played, the first one so far, a few hours of it. Yeah, not towards the end. But in terms of, when I was looking at some of the pre-release comparisons between the original game and the new Legendary Edition, obviously they've made a lot of interesting and cool changes to the lighting system, obviously the fidelity of everything, the textures and stuff like that. But there were a few scenes in those comparisons where I wondered whether the original lighting may have been better. It seems like from what I've personally seen, a lot of the approach they've taken is just brightening a lot of it up, in putting a bit more color in there. And have there any kind of how have those touch-ups been presented? Have there been any scenes where you've gone, I'm not sure about that, or that might have been better if they stuck to the atmosphere of the original?
I think that only the likes of us will realize that. I think that the thing, because one of the key scenes that they've completely changed in terms of the lighting directly affecting the moment is the first time you see a Reaper in person, one of the big sort of evil alien race things that's coming to take care of the galaxy. It's right at the beginning of the game. And at the original Mass Effect, that was took place inside like a lightning storm. And it was very terrifying. And it was, oh my God, what's that thing in the distance? Oh my God, it's this big, terrifying ship that takes off. That now has the sun behind it, and Eden Prime, when you're running towards that ship in the first place, has tons of leaves and different pieces of like ash and sparks and stuff in midair to give you this sort of, oh my God, look how much we've done style visual punch, which is very Watch Dogs 2, which is showering you in particle effects sort of left, right and center, which I can see both sides. I see what they're going for. They want to give you that visual punch, that sort of returning to Mass Effect. Look at the lens flares. Look how much graphical punch we've got. Enjoy our new combat system. They want to nail that first impression on that first planet. But at the same time, like you said, it does change the tone. It doesn't necessarily mean that Reaper ship taking off lands with as much, like, you're not scared of it anymore. It's just a wow moment. It's still, if you went thematically, if you were a new player, your first interaction with a Reaper would still be the found cam footage that Ashley uploads, that you and Captain Anderson and Nihilus get to watch on the ship first. So you could technically argue that that's still like a scary moment, and then you have the sun, the big visual bit later. But yeah, there's one thing I noted down was that sometimes some of the new character models, some of the new ship models against the pre-rendered space backgrounds when you're flying between different planets, make them look like models. It kind of looks like old school Star Wars, because they've put so much work into the ships, against these older pre-rendered and sort of screenshotted or whatever backgrounds, they can look like more jarring. It doesn't necessarily blur as much, but there are also some backgrounds like the Citadel, if you're in the wards, where they've touched up the background in there manually, and they've added something like the council ship going past, where it's just a nice excuse to show off some of the lighting models as this giant ship goes past and gets in the way of all these different light beams and everything. For me, like I said at the beginning, I think they've split the difference really well. I still love the original Mass Effect. I still think 90% of it holds up. The combat is such a little part of that game, and everything else, the writing, everything else is so great. So for me, going down the touch up the character models and focus on the visuals, but not go overboard with them, for me has been really, really strong so far. And there's obviously all the trophy systems, and the performance is solid on PS5. There's all that stuff. So for me, it's really, really good. But I'm only 4 hours in.
Of course, it sounds really promising. I'm looking forward to picking it up, but I want to know what you guys think down in the comments below. Are you looking forward to playing the Mass Effect Legendary Edition? Are you new to the series? Who are you going to romance? Please let us know all of those things in the comments. And while you're down there, could you please give us a like, share, subscribe if you like this video, and head over to WhatCulture.com for more lists and news like this every single day. Even if you don't know, I've been Josh, joined by Scott Tilford, and we'll see you soon. Bye.
Bye.